Welcome to Eggs, the podcast, featuring the best and brightest minds in business leadership, entrepreneurship, and technology. Today, we have a very special guest joining us, a global PR executive, startup advisor, and strategic communications consultant at Axxilion, Liliana Pertenava. Liliana has a wealth of experience in strategic communication, PR, and tech startups. Formerly spearheading global PR initiatives at Rakuten Viber, and now in a leadership role at Axxilion Strategic Communications, she has earned global coverage in elite media outlets like Forbes, CNN, and Bloomberg. Her expertise in launching products, elevating company profiles, and improving public perception is unparalleled. As an advisor and mentor with Techstars Accelerator, Liliana is passionate about sharing her knowledge in communications and investor relations for tech startups. She can provide valuable insights on fundraising, finding investors, and promoting your startup. We're thrilled to have Liliana on the show today, so without further ado, let's jump in. Please join us in welcoming to the show, Liliana Pertenava. Hey, Liliana, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm just great. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Thrilled to have you here.
Why don't you give us a brief overview of who you are and what you do? The intro did a little, but, expound.
That was a fantastic intro, by the way. Thank you. So professional. That's amazing. Well, first of all, I'm based around in Seattle area, the beautiful evergreen state. I recently moved here from London, United Kingdom, and I'm now the CEO of Axxilion, which is a strategic communications agency and consultancy. We work mainly with tech companies and venture capital firms. And this is something that I do as my half a lifelong passion, facilitating communications, telling the right type of story. And overall, I'm very excited about technology and how it's being developing lately. And I think this is like my main priority right now, to help entrepreneurs and high-tech brands to just be more human and help them fascinate more people with the products they create.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, no, it's funny. I mean, for people like me or with my background, and people who listen to the show know, basically coming from the creative space, it seems to me that working in public relations is one of those things that, especially for early stage startups, they just kind of don't even think about, or it doesn't occur to them as something they need to spend money on. And so I wondered if you wouldn't talk a little bit about sort of PR in general, just like let's kind of break down what PR is for people. And then, when would be a good time to start considering, incorporating PR into our marketing?
Of course. I mean, this is a great topic, and I'm working with so many early stage companies in tech, in accelerators, and, all of those super, super early companies where it's like two people, an idea. That's basically it. And of course, you're absolutely right. At that early stage, you really need to stay focused on the product you develop and the value you create for your potential users, and also on the sales side of things, which is quite difficult for many tech entrepreneurs. All of those crazy soft skills you need to convince like first 100 users to use your app or software or whatnot. So I would say that in this moment, it's helpful to think of PR as an asset that you can at some particular moment utilize for further growth and development of your company's brand. And public relations, media relations, overall in the tech space is how you describe what your product does to a wide audience and hopefully potential customers and clients, partners, and investors. So in order to reach those audiences, you can use several channels, so to speak. Media is an obvious one and one of the channels. There are quite a few outlets that focus on startups, on techs like TechCrunch, VentureBeat. Forbes has a tech section. Well, I think many current outlets have a tech section, right? And there are outlets that are specifically focused on early tech and investment areas. The other channel can be social media. And, I don't know if somebody of our listeners today uses Twitter, or X as it's called now. This is one of the, let's say, areas where a lot of tech entrepreneurs actually, create their first following, their first sales, and their first users. They find those on X platform, X Twitter. And LinkedIn is also a wonderful channel to facilitate B2B sales when you sell direct to other businesses. So social media, I can say that those are the main two channels for early communications for an early company. And you've asked me like when a company needs PR, right? When a company needs to start doing that and setting up those channels. Well, as for the social media, I think founders really need to have quite elevated social media profiles these days, because even with your first users, people usually research online, and they just need to see who you are, basically. What are you talking about, and how you present yourself is quite important for even early partners and users. As to media relations channel and working with press, I can say that this starts a little bit later in the life cycle of a startup, when you need to, first of all, hire people, because you compete with all of those Googles and Facebooks and Microsofts for the best developers or best talent. Not necessarily even developers, but for instance, you needed to get a great CFO or a great head of sales in your startup early on, and you might want to need someone who is experienced. And they also look for interesting opportunities, and you need to be able to tell about your vision to those potential employees, of very skilled employees who are also interesting to all of those huge tech giants. So employer brand, basically. Another topic is fundraising, when you need to reach as many investors and gain interest from them. This is when you really need to set up a communications channel with the media to fundraise and get funds. And the third one is probably more long-lasting and not that obvious, but kind of building reputation, building a brand and loyalty really pays off later on, because startups might have different issues, as we all know, down the road. And this is where established media relations come in very handy, because typically what happens is, so there could be two types of situations that I've dealt with. A company has no brand and no connections in the media, and there's a crisis, some sort of, data breach or whatnot. There are different situations that can happen in tech companies and products. And basically, it's really hard to quickly reach out to media to give a comment or clarification of what's happening or an update. And, this is the type of founders that come screaming like, we need to do something. And literally I just had a situation where I was onboarded as an agency just recently, and they had a difficult situation popping in the next day, basically. So yeah, I would advise. Yeah. Sorry.
That to me, when I think PR, that's what stands out to me is, we have an emergency, S hit the fan. Let's get a PR person to try and handle this. The before and after, the general communications and the stuff you were just talking about isn't stuff I really thought about when it comes to PR. I always think of data breach. We have to mitigate this somehow. Let's get a PR person involved. And it's good to hear that there's other use cases and other scenarios where PR is important and you need to pay attention to it other than just, when there's a fire in the kitchen kind of thing.
Well, and it's funny too, just like in hearing your description, Liliana, it made me wonder if we could talk a little bit about just sort of the difference between PR and marketing. So, because obviously, I think the way most people see marketing is as crafting messages for an audience of some variety, very small audience, very big audience, whatever, right? This is their outward looking, way they present themselves to the world. And so, but I can hear some clear delineation between sort of what I would think of anyway as marketing language or marketing work versus the type of relationships that you guys create as PR experts. So I wonder if you'd just talk a little bit about the difference in the two and why you need both, not just one or the other.
Oh, yeah. So I can say that marketing is probably essential for sales process. It really depends on the business model you're using, the business is using. But for online businesses, for tech businesses, marketing, I think is paramount, very important early on, even. Because, marketing can be product marketing where you explain what your product does literally. And this is a marketing task, right? Also performance marketing, ads marketing, and all of that system, a marketing system, email marketing, outbound, inbound, etc. That's all super important to drive sales and leads and basically, essentially, revenues of the company. Whereas PR is, of course, more hard to quantify topic for sure. And I strongly believe that it needs to be separated from marketing in the way we think about PR, because PR is not responsible for sales directly. It's more responsible for brand building and reputation. And I think, that, of course, absolutely everything can ruin a reputation of a company, starting from CEO and poor marketing. But it's PR exactly as we, spoke just a minute ago. Like when there's a fire, you have to use PR to fix it. But also, PR helps to build the brand in the long run. And we all kind of intuitively understand that brand does not happen overnight. It's something that takes careful investment over time, basically. And it's important that PR is an essential part of it. And also something that you create as reputation, as a loyalty for the brand in the long run. So I would say that PR is pretty essential for those tasks. And I also think that even if it's a very small audience, you are still in the PR business when, a founder is posting something on their blog. This is part of the PR complex and infrastructure for just a smaller task or smaller company, for instance. So it's how you are perceived, how you are placed among other competitors or other companies in your field, positioned. A lot of it is PR, of course.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I wonder then if we can kind of branch into another topic that you have particular interest in, which is AI. And as a PR person, obviously there's a lot of education that's got to take place right now in society at large, getting past, or maybe not past, whether or not AI is going to destroy the earth or there's got to be plenty of topics to cover in the AI sphere. So I wonder if you could talk about, obviously a lot of companies are starting to implement AI, they're starting to use these different AI tools as part of their, software launches and things like that. And I wonder if we couldn't talk a little bit about just sort of like what you're seeing as a person involved in public relations as it pertains to AI and the kinds of discussions that societally we're having right now about AI.
First of all, it's inevitable. So AI is coming to probably all industries. It's not only communications or, obvious things. It's everything. And it's probably, it has a potential for like a paradigm shift in terms of technology and how we interact and use it in many ways. I'm more optimistic towards AI, so I don't think that it will necessarily destroy the planet, but a lot will depend on and humanity, but a lot will depend on how we agree to regulate it and how we agree to set the rules for it. Because from one side of things, AI has the potential to enhance productivity in many areas and industries. But on the other hand, it can really fall into the wrong hands and create massive damage, even from the perspective of information and how it's processed and what type of information reaches big audiences, because AI can play a huge part in like fake news distribution, creation, all of that things. This is like from my perspective is pretty dangerous, not only for like just communications or media professionals, but also just for regular citizens. And this is something that can be really destructive in many ways, and I think it needs to be approached really carefully in terms of regulation.
I think that's what the writer's strike was all about, or a lot of it was just them going through content that's already out there and using it to recreate more content. And that's part of the big issue that was going on with that. Another really cool thing that I hadn't thought of that I was watching, I do audio engineering kind of on the side, and I listened to a podcast where a guy will go through and listen to other musicians' mix downs of content. So like they wrote a song and he'll critique the recording process and the mix down process. And one of the songs that he did critiqued was a guitarist had written a song, and then he had AI generate the lyrics and the singing for the song, and it actually sounded quite good. And so I was rather shocked at the ability to create content like that with AI. And it just opened my eyes to possibilities of things that it can and can't do. And I'm really kind of excited to see what the future holds. But like you said, it's also kind of scary and daunting when, the fake news or the content that someone just with ill intent puts out there. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, good on one side, bad on the other, and just depends on how you swing it. So,
yeah, no, it's funny, Mike,
Exactly.
about the story you're telling about music. I don't know if you have any awareness of, and I only have cursory awareness of it, but apparently somebody created a Drake song using AI.
oh yeah, I heard about
And
that.
I think I just read a follow-up that they're actually going to allow it to be entered for a Grammy, even though it was not written by Drake or sung by Drake, but the under the current rules of the Grammy folks, there I think it qualifies. So this song is going to end up being run for a Grammy, even though it was literally just an AI rip of a Drake song, which is kind of
That's
fun.
incredible.
So I
I
wanted
think
to ask.
it's smart. I think it's smart to embrace it really, because you can't control it in the long run, but you
Well, and
need to, yeah.
there are other artists too that I'm aware of. One in particular is Grimes, and Grimes has totally embraced it, in which she, basically actively encouraged people to create music using her lyrics or whatever, but using AI, and she would actually split royalties with people. So if they wrote a
It,
song and it was published and it sold, they would, they would split the royalties with her, which I thought was a really cool way of embracing this kind of technology and just saying, you know what, it's happening, so I might as well get in front of it.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
think.
funny you mentioned Grimes. Yeah, sorry, I want to add here that Grimes is actually one of the, she partnered with a company called Endel, which creates AI music. early on in the movement, like before OpenAI even launched. And Andal is a Techstars company, and I know the founder, and it's pretty amazing what they were able to achieve. And Grimes was onboarded like really, really early on when they just started to produce this AI music and created a few tracks with her, and it was a pretty amazing collaboration there. So yeah, pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I
no,
see
it's
that as
crazy
like,
where it's going to go.
I see her taking that on as a kind of like similar to when the music industry didn't take on streaming or didn't take on the iPod, or they were trying to still sell CDs to a market that didn't want it anymore. And so by her adapting, taking that on and being okay with it early on, I am willing to split royalties and have that collaboration. That just tells me that she sees what's coming and knows that you know you can't stop this. It's going to be here, so you might as well.
Well, she's really interesting too because she's as much artist as she is musician or whatever, right? And so, I mean, for her, I think a big part of this was like an artistic expression, like what can people create using technology and all this stuff, So I think it's really interesting how she embraced it. And I mean, a lot of people are going to have different approaches, but I think that it's smart to try not to fear the technology, but rather either figure out how to adapt to it or work with it.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of tag off of that, Liliana, and maybe, pick your brain a little bit. I want to talk about, this is something that you probably see somewhat regularly working in tech. And then also, in the examples that we were just talking about with AI being a sort of a novel technology. But I want to talk to you about how do you introduce something novel to a new audience? So like, in the case of AI, there was some novelty around it in that there wasn't something before it that you could really talk about. Blockchain is sort of similar, where you had a really advanced technology that can be broken down in some simpler ways, but it was totally novel to most people, still is really. And so, so I wonder if from a PR perspective, if you're challenged with, hey, we're a tech startup, we've got a really cool new idea. It's totally outside the mold. Like there is nothing like this out there. So this is a totally novel concept. How do you go about teaching somebody about something new and novel,
Oh, this is a beautiful topic. I can tell. I even studied innovation management way back in 2011 in Italy, because they were also trying to understand how to communicate innovation better. And it's really the concept of innovation itself is when you can get something very new and include it in a certain societal life cycle so people can use it. And this is, I think, the main important trait of something innovative is when, okay, it's kind of new, but it's easily embedded in your way of life or the way of something is done in a society, basically. So imagine like iPhone. It's a very good example of innovation when it came out back in 2007, I believe, first time introduced. So it's like, it's something that has a very novel edge to it, but it's used to do something that we can all relate to, phone calls and listening to music, right? So this is where innovation is born, how to do something in a new way that was done before already. So this is important. It's like not UFO, something that was never done or never seen. It's something that is included in a cycle, some kind of production cycle or life cycle or whatnot. So I think this is a concept of innovation that I like and how I understand it myself and how it's taught. And this is where we can understand how to explain something new to the audience. You have to explain to the audience how it will benefit them directly, basically. And with blockchain, that was really peculiar because they were really struggling because like I've made a movie about blockchain. It's called Crypto Rush. And it's actually about the crypto community where people, very geeky people, working on those difficult technology, and they struggled with explaining what they are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they are not taught, how to communicate about it. And I think the breakthrough for Bitcoin blockchain was first when everybody understood that it's basically one of trading aspects where you can just make money with fast trading of cryptocurrency. This is when it came into a bigger audience, basically. And another aspect of it was transactions, secure transactions, and all of that. That's also something that they try to explain somehow to general audiences, and maybe it kind of helped a little bit. So it's not Arthur Clarke, one of a very great sci-fi artists, said that real innovation is like magic. So you don't need to explain what is inside. It just needs to work. So you don't necessarily need to know how something is working from the inside, but you need to be able to utilize it. And this is also important when you try to explain something new, right? You have to explain what's the end result. What is the end value for the user? And this is something you need to focus on.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And especially it made me think of my parents, in-laws and my own. Because at one point they all were PC users, not to stir up a PC Apple fight. I'm for that. So, but I'm just saying that they were all, regular, Windows users. They would constantly call me for IT support, right? Every time there's something going wrong. So eventually though, I've been off Windows for a long, long time. And so it's been probably since Windows 95 or something since I've been on one. And so there came a point where I wasn't able to help my parents anymore. And so, but it was a big pain for them to call a tech company or to call an IT company or something to come help them. So eventually I just converted them all to Macs. I got everybody a Mac. And my IT time went down to almost nothing. And so the point about novelty is none of these people are computer geniuses. They don't know how to do it. But in my perspective, Apple just works. And it works in an intuitive way that worked really well for my parents and my in-laws, so that they were able to just go forward. So no amount of explanation would have crossed that bridge for them. But to your point, just getting their fingers in there and actually using the software, was perfectly beneficial for them and it worked great. So I think that's an interesting observation, because you do think sometimes with novelty, especially, that you've got to kind of explain it and really show people what stuff is. But I think you're right that, it probably has more to do with put up than talk. So,
well, I can't help but think of Steve Jobs, and when he would do the product reveals of, the initial iPod or the first iPhone, the way he would put a whole performance together just to show it and reveal it. And that to me seems like a good PR move to get it out there and get it in front of people and get the content out there where people can see what it is, how it works. And it just, if you want to talk about explaining, the first computer, how hard would that be? That would be really hard. Why do I need this? Why do I need a computer? I have a checkbook. I can, that would be really hard to do. And I'm sure software is the same way, and blockchain would be even harder to get across. And I think it really didn't take off until Joe Rogan had it on his podcast, and then all of a sudden everyone wanted it. So
yeah, I wish I had bought it when he had it on his show.
Right.
So yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think just to kind of follow up on Steve Jobs' thought, I think it's a great example where he exactly showed why would you need this. Every performance he did was to communicate how can you use it exactly, and why would you be happy to use it. So that's basically the story for every launch they did.
Yeah,
I think that's right.
Can you tell us about the process of making your movie and finding the people you want to interview and getting it out there and actually releasing it. That right there would be hard. Just finalizing it and being like, oh, I'm done. Here it is. So.
Oh yeah, that was really painful. Well, I'm a communications professional, and I was always interested in long form storytelling, and movie seems like an ultimate form of that integrated storytelling where you really need to think of the story, of the visual, of the sound, and so many aspects to it. So I got really, really ambitious about this passion to create this long form story. And first of all, like it was a topic that I could easily, not easily, but at least I had access to tech, to people who develop blockchain, working in the tech space myself. So that's why I chose this topic. And I've seen there's a huge interest to it. I started filming in 2017 when I think Bitcoin for the first time, like largely went on this growth spiral. It was like an insane growth cycle for Bitcoin in 2017. And so many people had heard about it for the first time ever, really. So I thought this is a great moment when you can make a documentary for people who never heard about it or never touched this area in their life. That's how I came about the topic for my movie. And then I really had to kind of think who could be, the heroes of the story. And this is where I found about 50 potential heroes. And looking for my networks in investment and developer communities, and basically just finding people who are doing different cool things. Also in hardware, in mining, not only software, but also hardware aspect of it. And this is how I got to, and I kind of made a post on social media that I want to make a movie. And a lot of people just came into comments and offered me to consider their projects. And one of them were actually Seattle-based mining facility. It's based in Wenatchee, here not far away, 3-hour drive from Seattle. And in 2017, they were the first place I flew to film. I didn't have a crew then. I just found a stringer through Craigslist who helped me film the interview. And it was quite adventurous. But then I understood that it's not something that I can manage in the long run. Like with stringers and by myself, it's really hard to do, because I really got this idea that I need to film in China, in Singapore, because in Switzerland, there in South Korea, and a lot of things were happening in the space at the time all over the world. And I needed a team. That's how I got a second producer on board who was experienced in movie making, and I got a vision, director of photography who I traveled with to film, who was also experienced in the movie space. And I got a mentor who I believe was editor to one of James Cameron's documentary films on Titanic. I don't know if you know, but James Cameron is like a Titanic expert person.
Yeah.
and he filmed like a lot on the sea bottom and kind of explorations and all of that stuff. So, I found a mentor through like Patreon and subscribed, and he became a mentor of how to put together this story. And in terms of like material, because we had like, I think 100 hours of film after 2 years of filming. And this was the most difficult part. Well, overall, like filming was adventurous, exciting, difficult physically, but mentally daunting and was post-production and getting all of this material together in one story and creating a editorial script, because documentary movies, they don't have like a strict scenario beforehand. You just have an idea, high level, and then you go flow with it. You get what you get. You cannot plan what people are going to say, basically. And then you come up with a script when you saw 100 hours of film. And then you
that
kind
would
of
be
come up with a story.
that would be really hard to. I mean, I've done some larger
Yeah.
projects where we stripped all the audio content out of a movie and replaced all the audio kind of thing, and that was hard enough. But going through 100 hours of content and deciding what to use and what not to use would be very daunting. Let alone just getting it in the right order and finding, oh, where'd that clip go? Where'd that clip go? What do I do? You know, that would be very hard to do. So
yeah, it took me a year.
Yeah,
that actually seems pretty quick. Yeah, no, I'm impressed. I mean, I've been a part of some small productions, you know, TV commercials and stuff that we've shot over the years. And, you know, just planning for like, you know, a 30-second shoot or a 60-second shoot is difficult.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't imagine doing it for a full length film. So, so kudos on that. So, but that maybe leads me into my next topic a little bit. And I think maybe you can talk about it in a way that it would pertain to other business owners, startup founders, things like that. And that's self-promotion as it pertains to PR. So certainly as part of creating this film, I imagine you did some public relations work for yourself. You know, probably push this thing around a little bit. And also, I mean, here you are on a podcast right now talking about yourself and your business and the things that you do. Clearly, there's a personal brand component here, right? So a little practice what you're preaching. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about just sort of how those things dovetail together. You know, first of all, basically launching a brand, which was your film. And then, you know, basically needing to then make a personality out of not just the film itself, but of, you know, yourself as it pertains to the film.
Well, yeah, thank you. That's really kind of introspectory question. You know, think about yourself on a podcast, talk about how to promote yourself. That's pretty dope. I think that personal brand is really difficult for people like me. I always was more behind the scenes with what I was doing. I was pushing others, but not myself. And you're exactly right. I think the movie was the first time I ever went out with my own creation, my own creative project, which was non-monetary or anything. It was just like a really side creative project for me. And it was really difficult to push, but I got a TechCrunch article for it about the movie when it came out in 2020. And I got a few articles in the cryptocurrency media, blockchain-focused media. And that was where I really thought that I could get some help on board and getting help from people to promote me, because pitching yourself can be really challenging. And it looks really strange, like, hey, you know, I'm cool. Take me on, you know. That's where I actually use help from people who can help me pitch myself. So I can not necessarily like they do all the work. They just do the outreach for me. Sometimes it could be my friends, you know. But for TechCrunch, I pitched myself because I have great relationships with the TechCrunch editor. And I didn't feel shy to just say, hey, I made a movie. You know, if you're interested, write about it. But that was probably an exception from the rule where I try to use intermediary. And I think for others, this is a great lesson where you really need a PR person to do your communications for you, because it's just easier in psychologically, so to speak. But also in terms of personal branding, I think what is coming easy for me is to be a contributor to, so I'm writing contributor to Entrepreneur magazine. I'm writing, you know, on my LinkedIn page, sharing my thoughts online. And being your own media is, I think, another great option to self-promote if you don't want to hire anyone to do the media outreach on third-party outlets. You can be your first media, yourself, you know, first party media, basically, and do your blog or Twitter account or LinkedIn page or whatnot. And that's basically the second option for shy people to just try to learn to express your thoughts and get it out there. And you will find an audience always. Someone will be interested in what you have to say. And with the movie, it was more just kind of getting this mindset of I have a product and I need to promote it, whatever it takes. And so this focus, this goal really helped me a lot. I was not kind of promoting myself, but I was promoting my product that I produced. And this is the way I prefer to think about personal branding. When you have ideas, when you have thoughts that you want to share, this is what you are conveying. So it's not about you. It's about the message that can appeal to a certain audience. And this is what you are promoting. So if you think about that, it's not about you. Like, it's strange to talk about it like in terms of personal branding, right? But in the end of the day, it's the value people get from what you have to say. And focus on that, like, and the quality of that message really helps to be self-promotional a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think there's some really good like psychological tools that you dumped in there. I'm listening to you talk and I'm thinking of both my experience and Mike's experience of doing sort of something similar, which is going from being the behind the scenes person to the person, out front.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had a brief stint where I thought for a minute that the thing to do was to be a public speaker. And I wanted to do all that, even though it's totally anti to what I want to do. I don't actually want to do that all that often, but it seemed like the thing you were supposed to be doing, right? So I started really getting active about a personal brand, right? And I found that it was really challenging for me emotionally to put myself out in front as the star or as the person of interest in the situation. And so what I ended up doing is going back to sort of my artistic roots and doing drawings and creating, these posters and stuff like that, and then putting those things for sale. And then I had no problem talking about those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't come by me, it was come by those, and it was easier. And so, and you kind of mentioned this idea, and I feel like we should probably coin a phrase for it and write a book about this. But there's something about that, maybe it's cognitive dissonance, maybe it already exists, but it's this idea about, sort of separating yourself from the product, or even if you're a personal brand person, it sounds like maybe you're, a little bit more, I guess, traditionally shy, or the way that, I would consider myself. And, putting yourself out there is challenging, but it seems like that by putting a little bit of distance between you, the human being, and you, what you deliver, so in this case, the value that you offer, a consulting client, or, maybe an audience for your, public speaking career. If you can put yourself into the frame of mind where you're selling that end product, not selling yourself, I think that you can probably overcome a lot of the things that keep people from going forward in this particular vertical.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Buddhist practice of disattachment right there.
See, I knew it. Somebody figured it out. Dang
Yeah,
it. So much for that book.
Buddha actually figured it out. So you attach from the results of your work, disattach, and you really this is where you gain freedom to talk about it or do whatever you want. And I think this is an important concept, specifically because people tend to kind of get everything and make everything a little bit too personal. Whereas a thought is also a product that you produce, and it's okay to put it out there and see what other people think.
Yeah.
And
not to make a second Joe Rogan call out in this show, but he also says this thing that you aren't your ideas. So this concept that you aren't your ideas, meaning that there is a little bit of distance between the things that you think and you as a human being. And so, and I guess it's this disattachment that I thought we figured out. But, but basically, it's this concept that, you may be accountable to your idea, right? If you come out with a good idea or a bad idea, you can, take the good with the bad, I guess, in terms of exterior feedback. But you can also cut off that idea and have a new idea based on whatever's going on. And so if you started out with, a bad misconception of something, and then you learned something new about it and it changed your idea, you're no longer that old idea. You're not attached to that thing, And I think as it pertains to personal branding, there's a little bit of that too, in just, okay, you have this idea, you're safe to roll it out there. If it doesn't work, you're also safe to change your mind. And so, because I think so many people get attached to an idea and they make that their thing, and then, in the end, that ends up being a problem for them emotionally or whatever, because they're so hung on this idea that they had, even in the face of new information, that now this is, now I look kind of stupid, but this is the soapbox I chose. So I'm going to stand on it and shout all day.
Yeah.
Well, you
so
see
I
that
think
all
that
the
this
time.
idea of disassociating is really interesting. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah.
You see that all the time on like LinkedIn or Instagram comments or something like that. Like someone will throw something out there to see if it sticks, and all of a sudden the whole world's like yelling at them like, oh, this is wrong. But that's the cross they're willing to die on, because they put it out there in the first place, when in all reality they should be taking the input and the feedback from the comments and the people saying stuff.
Yeah. Or what's worse is somebody
that.
drops that great idea and it is interesting and it does resonate with people. And then all of a sudden there's a string of everybody else who's experts in that idea.
Yeah.
So that's the thing I see on LinkedIn all the time too, which is just the opposite of what you're describing, which is somebody said something cool. Hurry up, say something cool. It's trending.
Yeah.
So it's really funny because you see like kind of the many faces of some of these people who are just trying to get a little bit of social cred on LinkedIn, which is they just hop from topic to topic to topic, owning other people's ideas, not truly believing them, but just articulating them for clicks.
Yeah. Well,
I think just to
go
round
ahead.
up, sorry, Mike. I mean, just to round up, one of the founders of Y Combinator, this is another accelerator, pretty famous in the tech space, Paul Graham. He writes essays, and one of his great essays from the old times, I believe, is about how people make ideas charged and make ideas part of their personality. And this is where problems emerge. And I think this is a great essay that everybody interested in this, free thinking or critical thinking aspect can enjoy. So go look for Paul Graham's essays as a website where he just exercises in thinking. And this is a great essay. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah. Well, we're kind of at that time. Do you want to tell people where they can find you, how they can reach out, get in touch with you if they want to?
Sure. I think LinkedIn, the LinkedIn. This is where I do my professional posts, connections, and it's easy to connect with me there and find me there. It's Liliana Pertenava, Pertenava. So go ahead and connect. Cool. I'll be happy to.
We'll also be sure to include URLs and stuff like that in the show notes so people can track you down that way also. So, Well, thank you so much, Liliana. This has been awesome. I really appreciate sort of your multifaceted view on these things. I mean, we really covered the gamut here from PR to filmmaking to AI and everything in between. So I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our discussion, and thank you to the listeners for staying with us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much to everybody who tunes into the show this week and every week. We'll see you guys next time.